In the next few minutes, you'll understand why some people recharge in solitude while others wither in it. And more importantly, you'll discover which of these two groups you truly belong to. Imagine someone coming home after a day full of people. The door closes, silence takes over, and instead of anguish, what comes is relief. Not because the day was bad, not because people were unpleasant, but because it's finally over. The body relaxes. Breathing slows down, as if something that was tense all along could finally let go. Now imagine another person in the same situation. The door closes, silence arrives, and instead of relief, what comes is emptiness. A restlessness that grows, the need to call someone, open social media, play music, anything to bring presence back. Because silence, for this person, doesn't calm, it amplifies an absence that hurts. Two people, same situation, opposite reactions. And this isn't about being sociable or antisocial. It's not about liking or disliking people. It's about something deeper that psychology took decades to begin understanding. The structure of how not every brain processes the presence of others the same way. This bothers others. When someone says they prefer being alone, people hear rejection. They hear problems. They hear escape. Because the dominant belief is that we need each other to be complete. That happiness lives in company. That whoever chooses solitude is choosing against human nature itself. But is that really true? Or do two human natures exist in plural, not singular? Most were taught that being alone is temporary, a phase between connections, a void that needs filling as quickly as possible. But for some people, solitude isn't void, it's space. And there's a huge difference between the two. Void demands filling, generates anguish, hurts. Space allows breathing, generates clarity, calms. When you understand solitude as space, it stops being something you endure and becomes something you choose. But where does this ability come from to transform absence into presence? To feel company in your own company? Was this learned or born with you? And more importantly, what happens inside someone's mind when everyone around is celebrating connection and all this person wants is to leave, go away, return home, close the door, and finally be at peace? To understand this, we need to go beyond intentions. Let's try to discover what's really being charged from us in each interaction. There's something almost nobody talks about regarding social interaction. It costs. And I'm not talking about money or time. I'm talking about something more invisible, deeper. Every conversation, every sustained look, every smile you return, every word you choose before speaking, all of this consumes something inside you. And for some people, this cost is so high that a single day of socializing can drain weeks of accumulated energy. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer lived this firsthand. After any social event, he'd lock himself at home for days, and it wasn't stubbornness, it was necessity. He discovered there are people who, after being with others, need entire stretches of time to recover, as if each interaction left an invisible mark that only silence can erase. It's not physical tiredness, it's a type of exhaustion that doesn't appear in the body, it appears in the will to exist. You wake up the next day, and the mere idea of having to talk to someone again already weighs heavy. Carl Gustav Jung saw the same phenomenon studying hundreds of people. Some minds function like batteries that discharge in others' presence and recharge in their absence, and others function exactly opposite. It's not choice, it's not training, it's structure. Some people's brains simply spend more force processing faces, voices, intentions, expectations. Each person in the room is a stimulus that needs decoding, responding, managing, and when you leave that room, what remains is emptiness, as if something was sucked from inside you. Now think of someone who feels the opposite, someone who leaves a party and feels like they just woke up. The battery wasn't drained, it was recharged. The conversation didn't tire, it fed. For this person, silence doesn't calm, it unsettles. Because their brain doesn't spend on people, it gains. Each interaction is fuel. Each new face is positive stimulus. And when the party ends, what they feel isn't relief, it's loss. This creates a brutal asymmetry in the world, because most social structures were built by those who gain energy from people. Open offices, long meetings, mandatory happy hours, everything designed for those who recharge in presence. But for those who discharge, for whom each of these things is a piece of peace being torn away, the world simply ignores. And when you say you need to be alone, the world hears as if you said you don't like anyone. But it's not about liking or not liking, it's about surviving. Because if you're someone who spends energy on people, you're not choosing solitude as luxury. You're choosing it as necessity, as the only way to return to being yourself after being diluted in so many presences throughout the day. But then the question is, where does this difference come from? Was this born with the person or built over time? Jung noticed something curious studying hundreds of people over decades. Most don't know who they are when alone. Remove other people from the room, remove the gazes, remove expectations, and what remains isn't a person, it's an unanswered question. Who am I when nobody's watching? Most never answered this. Because their identity was built in others' reflection. They are what people say they are, what people expect them to be. And when they're alone, this mirror disappears, and with it, the certainty of existing. But some people crossed this desert. They stayed alone long enough to discover they can exist without an audience. And this changes everything. Because from the moment you don't need anyone watching to confirm you exist, others' presence stops being necessity and becomes choice. You're not with someone because you fear being alone. You're there because you want to be. And this difference is enormous. This usually happens after some kind of rupture. It might have been moving to a city where nobody knew you. It might have been betrayal that taught you people disappear. It might have simply been a childhood where nobody was available, and you learned early that crying for company is wasted energy. It was an event that forced you to stay alone long enough to realize solitude doesn't kill. And when you discover this, when you truly internalize that you can survive without anyone, something inside you reorganizes. Jung called this individuation. It's the process where you stop seeking your identity in what others think of you and start building this identity from inside out. Most never complete this process. They spend their whole lives checking if they're being seen, if they're being loved, if they're being remembered. These people's selves depend on external gazes to remain standing, but when someone completes individuation, they build a self that exists alone, that doesn't need validation to stay real. And that's where the difference lies between who feels better alone and who feels worse. It's not about liking or disliking people. It's about having completed or not this process of building a self that doesn't depend on witnesses. In complete individuation, solitude becomes space. Without it, solitude becomes void. Because without anyone to confirm who you are, you simply disappear. But having completed this process doesn't mean you're free of everything. There's a price to this. A cost nobody warns you about beforehand. And it's about this price that most people who prefer being alone never talk about. Schopenhauer told a story about porcupines in winter. They need to stay close to each other, not to freeze to death, but when they get too close, the quills hurt. So they spend their whole lives trying to find the perfect distance. Close enough not to freeze, far enough not to bleed. He used this to explain how people function. Most need proximity, but proximity hurts. So they stay in this eternal back and forth, seeking warmth without getting hurt. But what about those who don't feel cold? What about those who discovered they can survive winter alone, without needing to approach anyone? These people stop playing the porcupine game, not because they are insensitive, but because they learn to generate their own warmth. And when you do this, something happens. Other people stop understanding you, because people connect through their shared weaknesses, through mutual need. When someone says they need you, what they're really saying is, you have the power to affect me. And this creates a bridge. But when someone doesn't need, when someone is fine, alone, complete, self-sufficient, the bridge doesn't form. And this confuses, because deep down most people measure affection by the pain of absence. If you don't suffer when someone leaves, then you didn't truly care. At least that's what they believe. So when you say you prefer being alone, people hear rejection. When you don't call, don't text, don't miss them, they interpret it as coldness. They can't conceive someone can care without needing, that someone can value without depending. For them, love and need are the same thing. And you, who separated the two, become an enigma. Or worse, become a threat. Because your autonomy exposes their dependence. There's a cost to this. You lose access to a type of intimacy that only exists in shared fragility. That feeling of being essential to someone, of knowing your presence is vital, not optional. People who feel better alone gain freedom, but lose the comforting illusion of being irreplaceable. And this illusion is what makes many people wake up in the morning. Besides, you become hard to read. People spend their lives trying to decipher others through the need they demonstrate. They measure affection by contact frequency, by the intensity of longing, by the desperation of absence. But you don't offer any of these signals. You're present when you are, and absent when you're not. No drama, no demands. And this disorients because you became someone who can't be measured by normal affection rulers. And there lies the deepest solitude, not the solitude of being alone, but the solitude of being surrounded by people who will never understand you. But this raises another question. Do these people really never need anyone? Is there any exception? And the answer is yes, but it's rare. There's a rare type of person who pierces the armor. And when this happens, even those who feel better alone notice the difference. It's not about beauty, charm, or intensity. It's about something more subtle. It's about frequency, as if some people vibrated at a tuning that doesn't force, doesn't invade, doesn't demand. They simply exist alongside without trying to occupy space that isn't theirs. Schopenhauer said most human connections are based on need. You need something. I need something. So we stay together while the exchange works. But there's a rare type of connection that asks for nothing, that doesn't demand presence, doesn't measure affection by frequency, doesn't transform absence into abandonment. It's a presence that doesn't weigh. And when you find this, even if you're someone who always preferred being alone, you notice. Nietzsche spoke about friendship between free spirits. He said most friendships are made of dependence disguised as affection. People approach because they fear being alone, not because they truly want to be together. But there are rare friendships where two spirits meet without needing each other, where company isn't escape from solitude, but celebration of freedom. And these friendships are so rare most people live their whole lives without experiencing one. For those who feel better alone, 99% of people drain. Conversations that go nowhere, proximity that charges too high a price, expectations that transform each meeting into performance. But there's that 1% that's different. They're people who don't try to change you, complete you, or fix you. They're just there. And when they leave, you don't miss them in the dramatic sense. You simply notice the atmosphere changed, like when a song playing in the background stops. And only then do you realize it was there. And there lies something important. Those who feel better alone aren't incapable of connection. They're extremely selective, because they know how much it costs. They know each person who enters their life will demand energy, attention, presence. So they only open space for those worth this cost. And most people simply aren't worth it. Not from arrogance, but from survival economy. When someone like this finds this rare exception, something happens. It's not that they start needing this person, but they recognize this person understands that proximity doesn't need to be invasion. That affection doesn't need to be dependence. That you can care deeply about someone without needing that person always present to confirm the affection is real. In the end, what truly defines who you are isn't your preference. It's what happens when solitude finds you. That's when the mask falls and truth reveals itself. In the end, maybe it's not about enjoying being alone. Maybe it's about not fearing it. Because the real difference between who feels better alone and who feels worse isn't in preference. It's in what happens when solitude arrives. For most, it arrives as threat, as a hole that needs urgent filling before it swallows everything. But for some, it arrives as familiar territory, like returning home after being away too long. Most people flee solitude as if it were death, fill every second with noise, with people, with distraction, because when silence comes, it comes with questions they can't answer. Who am I when nobody's watching? What remains of me when I remove all masks? And these questions frighten, so they do anything not to be alone with themselves. But those who feel better alone discovered something different. They discovered they can survive these questions. That silence doesn't kill, it reveals. That solitude isn't punishment, it's just a state. And when you stop fearing this experience, when you truly accept you can exist without anyone around, everything changes. Because from this moment, others' company stops being necessity and becomes choice, and that's where real freedom lies. It's not about rejecting people, it's about not needing them to stay whole. You're with someone because you want to be, not because you fear what happens if you're alone. And this completely changes connection quality, because you're not clinging, you're not negotiating, you're not trading dependence for security. You simply are. And when you're not anymore, you return to yourself without feeling you lost something essential. Schopenhauer, Jung, Nietzsche, they all saw this from different angles, but reached the same conclusion. Most people live trapped in their own needs. They need validation, company, constant confirmation they're not alone. And these needs create suffering, because the world never delivers enough. Something's always missing. There's always an absence that hurts. But those who cut the root of this need, who learn to exist without depending on anyone's presence, achieved something rare. It's not superiority. It's not coldness. It's not rejection of humanity. It's just self-sufficiency. It's the capacity to carry your own existence without needing anyone to help hold the weight. And perhaps that's what bothers other people so much. Not the fact you prefer being alone, but the fact you can, because this exposes they can't. That their solitude is made of fear, while yours is made of choice. And nobody likes being confronted with their own dependence. So if you're someone who feels better alone, understand, you're not broken. You just learn to exist in a way most will never learn. And this doesn't make you better than anyone, just different. And being at peace with this difference is already more than most achieve. If this journey resonated with you, it's because you recognized your place in one of these paths. The key to freedom isn't in loving solitude, but in mastering it. The next step is understanding what truly imprisons you. The video on your screen now will show you how the mind builds invisible prisons through emotions themselves. You'll discover how to recognize and disarm these traps without needing masks or escape. It's not about becoming cold, it's about becoming free. Click the video on screen now.